Welcome back, you wonderful lot of Project Ozone 3 KAPPA mode. Yes, it's been a bit of a break with this one. I got so frustrated that everything was processing so slowly, and I needed to actually speed things up. But so I decided I'm going to speed things up. But then I decided, well, everything looked quite untidy, so I did a little bit of tidying, which turned out into 12 plus hours of tidying. Yeah, so there is that. Let me show you what I did. Basically, I realigned all the platforms so they're all nicely centered and aligned with each other. So if you do like the fact that I spent 12 hours just realigning platforms and moving machines around, do like the video down below. That really helps the channel, I guess, and helps me want to do this again in the future, because I really don't want to do it again. Anyway, getting on with things, I moved a few of the upper platforms' contents down onto their own separate platforms. So we've got a smeltery down here. Back over there, I've got the old mob machine. The old mob farm has been moved down all the way down there, so it's out of the way. And then the processing, which is was underneath the mob farm originally, was all messy and everything like that. So I tidied all that up, exactly the same. It's just nice and tidy. And there is a remote switch here to turn the mob farm on and off, so I don't need to actually do anything. You use the same thing for the blood magic one, so you don't have to go in and enable lights or drop onto the roof and enable lights. So there's the same storage drawer system for that. Lava's been moved from the top as well, and obviously that was behind the smeltery, but everything can use ender tanks now, so we use the ender tanks for lava. I did a second auto sieve. There is a first one, and I did do a bit of testing. As it turns out with the auto sieves, they only deal, even though there's two inputs to every auto sieve, it only deals with one input at once. So if I put sand in one and gravel in another, it'll process either sand or gravel first, but it won't do anything else until that input's pretty much empty. So I'm going to need another two of these so I can handle sand, dust, gravel, and the other chest, this one, which deals with crushing netherrack and other stuff. So I also got into Cobbleworks, so this is neat and tidy. We did have this before. It was just hidden away and sort of underneath the sieve. And the sieve, obviously you can see the original sieve is now gone, that giant long water wheels. I'm somewhat regretful of that. And that sieve setup was really, really fast because it had 81 sieves going constantly and processing one every, I don't know, second or so. So it was very fast. These are slower, but they still do the same job. They're powered by solar panels, so I don't need to actually do anything for them, and that means they're separate. They won't put a power draw on the rest of our system, so you can just add as many as you want, really. They'll only work during the day and however much these keep during the night, but they keep 32 million FE, so that they will last quite a long time. So that's broadly the changes. I don't think there's anything else much changed around here other than the locations and stuff. I have added things like Pneumaticraft's pressure chamber to the AE2 system, so I can tell it it does 4 at a time instead of 1 at a time, because if you do 1 at a time and you ask for 32, it will put like, even though this is upgraded, the input and output, it takes too long to make just one. When you're doing 32, it does 1 at a time, so 4 or 5 ingredients get added to it in here 1 at a time, and then it does 1, and then it goes through and does another set. So yeah, I've changed it to 4 because that's a reasonable, I think, compromise. You can change that to 8 or 16 or whatever you actually want to do there, really, whatever number you like. And I've just used the setup that we have in the other mod pack I'm currently playing through, which you may see on the channel, just to have the nice safe setup for shutting down the furnaces when they get to a certain amount of pressure. So that's useful to have as well. But you've probably seen that in the other mod pack. Other than that, everything else is, I was going to say everything else is pretty much the same. The thing I want to cover today is, first of all, replacing these empowerers if I possibly can. The empowerers, even though I've made 2 of these setups now, they're sort of, well, they're slow, and they're also just a pain to deal with. I've added them to AE2 as they are, so we do have the patterns already. So any system that can replace them, we can just reuse those same patterns and maybe make this whole thing condensed. There is something you have to watch out for if they use the same ingredients. So if you had 2 things that use the same ingredients and you put them both in the same replacement for this, whatever we're going to do, they may well use each other's ingredients a little bit wrong, so I have to be a bit careful about that. But other than that, we've got that going. And one last thing here is worthwhile mentioning. This is new. I just moved the rock crusher and the pressurizer from our workshop area over here, because now it's set up with solar panels and it's entirely independent again, so it doesn't have any load on our system. Ask me how I know that. It drained the entire batteries here, because the rock crusher and the pressurizer with upgrades consumes a huge amount of power. So instead, all I did was create an igneous extruder, set it to granite mode, set that to output into the rock crusher, which outputs 3 things. And one of those things gets put into the pressurizer to produce rhodochrosite, or whatever it's called. Rhodochrosite? Ah, I got it first time. Anyway, that then outputs it into the system. So this is nice, neat, and separate, and it will just continually generate rhodochrosite. How much do we actually have? I've been left this going for quite a while. Oh, 3,610. Okay, so I don't need rhodochrosite for a while. It's the compressed form. And more importantly than that, it's not drawing on the main system. The main system is still using 2 solar panel 6s. And the AE2 system can now actually make them. So I can add in more here if we have extra load on the system. But more likely, you could just put these with some upgraded energy conduits, which these are enhanced energy conduits. Which let's just have a look. Copper, no. There we go. So max output 5,120 micro I per tick. Can we please just call it RF or FE, or everyone should just use one energy standard, please? I know the different mods, but please everyone agree to just call it one thing. However, the upgraded conduit works perfectly fine. And I'm using that same, I was using the same process over here and sharing stuff around, but I decided just to attach the solar panels directly to the energy inputs, and then that's going to basically be restricted to whatever these things can actually power. Right now, the system's off because I was doing stuff with Cobbleworks, but if I wanted just, say, for example, sand or gravel, I've got these ender chests, which I can move or use this channel anywhere. And indeed, I've got them here. So again, I can move these around without having to change any kind of pipe work. And then I can just turn this on by turning on the translocator like that. And this will start processing gravel in a second once it realizes. There it goes. Which is coming out the back just like before, and this is being processed by our rest of our system. So yeah, gravel is now working, which is producing things like coal and other stuff. So all good, but today we're going to get on with the empowerers. So let's get started with that. I've got some bits and pieces in here because there is a modular machinery version of an empowerer called a mechanical empowerer, which looks like a pretty huge, pretty huge thing to actually construct. Hopefully, I only ever need one. But it's worthwhile doing. And also, I may not want it to be on that platform because that won't fit. So I have another platform over here, which should fit it. So now I'm just going to go and put that down and get it hopefully up and working. So after a bit of lunch, headed off and constructed our whole empower here. Now, worryingly, it does have 5 item inputs, and I'd rather not feed stuff into 5 separate inputs just like the originals, but let's see whether it actually needs that to be done anyway. So the first thing I'm going to need power for this. I can get started with just like our usual spectre coils, but I'm probably just going to craft some solar panels unless it's already crafted some. I usually have some in reserve. Do I have any reserve? No, I don't. Is it actually crafting? It is still crafting and scheduling a bunch of stuff, and it's broken, but I'll fix that later. Anyway, moving on. I'll just use a spectre coil for now, and I'm going to just dump it onto this ultimate energy input hatch. I just use the largest ones because they're cheap. Whether that actually is worthwhile or not, I think I may have swapped that out because that's a lot of FE to really transfer and drain out of our system, isn't it? So I think I'll probably craft something a little smaller, but for now it's got some energy in it. So let's just dump in some of our ingredients. This is enough for 2, and I just want to actually dump it into a single input. Now I've used normal item inputs. One thing to note, just in case you're not aware of modular machinery, you need to make sure that whatever recipe you're going to be putting into here, there are enough spaces in your input and in your output to handle both, the input ingredients and the output ingredient stuff at the same time. So for example, our sieves over there, they need to have a lot of outputs, and I put a lot of inputs, so there's this large buffer. But you definitely need the outputs. It won't work without enough outputs to handle that recipe. In this case, it's just producing one output, so I've only really gone for like a normal output as well, but we may well increase the size of these inputs just to handle multiple recipes being dumped in here at the same time. So let's just dump the stuff in, and let's see if it actually does anything with them. Is it going to say it's certainly progressing, and you're gone, and it's done too. So I can literally ignore these item inputs, which is exactly what I actually want. What I may well do is attach one of these inputs instead of using this top one here to our AE2 system. So we'll just feed a cable, in here or something, and bring it up to the top where an interface will go. And then we can transfer all of the stuff from over there over here, and we'll see hopefully if it'll actually basically make stuff for us, but we'll see how fast it goes. So I'm just going to tell it to make another interface block for me. Yes, please. And one of those. That should do it just fine. I'm just going to go and cancel this one because it's probably broken on some level. I was just arranging equipment while it was actually doing stuff. Let me see whether it'll actually say it's still valid if I want to actually craft one now. It'll craft two because it just makes two in the recipe. Yes, it looks like it can. So you're just going to go ahead and do that. Everything is scheduled. What I think it's scheduled on is the oak planks. I did make a precision sawmill, and I've probably not configured it correctly. Where are you? It's in the workshop. I think I need to configure the outputs and stuff like that. So side config, it's going to be accepting from the back. So the input needs to be red on the back, and auto eject. What I may well need is there it goes. I may well need an ender chest on top because I don't think it can also auto eject to the back. Certainly isn't doing so automatically. So let's just move over this one, which I used to use, but I no longer need. Nice and cheap. Don't need to actually make anything. And you can go right there. And then we can just put this, this painted glowstone back and keep everything nice and lit up in the corner. So that should start outputting once I configure the top to be the output. And off you go. Good. So now I just need to make energy upgrades to make this thing fast enough for the system to craft. It's basically making 6 planks from one piece of wood. So that's all good. One of the things I want to actually automate as well is this thing where we drop on top of the pressure plate. Haven't done that yet, but that is one of my things queued up. If you have any ideas, you can put them in the comments down below. I may well cover it this episode. If not, then I'm sure you can check the comments down below if you want to automate that. So with that done, we've got basically everything I need apart from an interface block and some cable. And then we can look at that now. Just speaking about cable, underneath, we are sort of slowly running out of channels on that initial controller block. So what I may well do is craft another one. We could move across to ease the cable using dense cable. If you want to use regular, we could just get away with using perhaps P2P networks, and we could go on to talking about that. Or indeed, I can just make dense cable like I've been doing already. However, to expand this, we're going to need probably more controller blocks. So what I'm probably going to do is move this basement area. There's only one real sort of pod or square or whatever you want to call these things set up already. But what I'm going to be doing is setting up an underfloor area, just like the above floor area, but for more like A2 machinery, the cables, automatic processing, like stuff in here. These kind of things where they're auto outputting and auto inputting and stuff like that kind of thing. It shouldn't take too much because there's not really much down here. There's going to be a room perhaps for assemblers, a room for CPUs, and then a room for auto input, auto output, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to be moving these Ender IO stuff onto their own platform upstairs because we can hide a lot of the wiring underneath them. We don't need that kind of stuff. But I am going to increase the speed. I've already upgraded these to use well, not that one. That one used the crystalline capacitors. It is faster than an octadic, so do use the crystalline if you have them. And over here, I have made changes so we can make 4th degree steel. And how I'm doing that, you see the magma crucible isn't here anymore. One thing I didn't mention when I said I tidied up is I also went and grabbed fluidic cows. And over here, I put them onto a platform and it was misaligned. So then I had to, and because it was so far away from the center, its misalignment was really quite bad. So I had to literally one by one move the cows onto this new platform. It's now fine. We're not going to talk about the misalignment. It's okay. All right. So I have 4 sort of fenced in areas for cows. Literally blazing pyrotheum, jelly cryothium, zephyrian aerothium, and tectonic petroleum, and getting all those while recording and thinking about it is yeah, a little bit hard. The most important one is your blazing pyrotheum, because as you go through the steels, you need much more of this and a little bit less of this by 3 times less, basically, and then this and then this. So I have far too much tectonic petroleum cows than I actually need. But they're all outputting to the same channel ender tank, because it doesn't matter, because it's automatically inputs into our AE2 system. So I don't have to worry about the other end, because the AE2 system will pull it all in, and then when there's space for a different fluid, that gets pulled in as well. And this is all in the same channel the crude oil is being imported, so no big problem there. And just to show you how much those cows have been generating, let's just take a look at the fluid terminal. I don't have a wireless version of this right now, but I have 8,000 buckets of pyrotheum. So I think we have enough there to do a few things. One thing I want to just maybe do is the master infusion. Infusion. Let me just be able to type. My things in the way. Master infusion crystal needs 6th degree neutral steel. I was hoping that was going to be 4th degree. Maybe not. So then we have had to make insanium, and insanium comes from 6th degree as well, and that means we have to basically 3-to-1 reduction from 5th, and then it's a 3-to-1 reduction from 4th to get to 5th, but it also needs vivid and tungsten. So can I actually tell it to make 6th? Did I actually remember to put the recipe in? I did remember to put the recipe in. So I have 8 6th degree steel. All right, but I'm going to need 20 total, so I'm going to need another 12 of those. Let me just see how much resources that actually needs, because I can actually ask the system to do this now. Oh, so amazing. Alt click and then just say 12, please. It's going to need 1,300 more draconium. Okay, I will do that off camera. Yes, but you get the idea. The system now going to make up to 6th degree steel. And to make the earlier degree steels, these are just being output from our system via fluid export buses, and then we can just basically dump the steel in, and then it'll just work its way through these really quite quickly. No big deal there, and very fast indeed. So yeah, easy enough to get to 6th, but I will just need to get more draconium. Is there anything else I want to cover just yet? No, I think I'm going to go on and move all of those, if I can, out into an interface. I will connect it to the system, and hopefully that will be faster, and maybe swap out that energy interface. The ultimate one is probably too much. The big size should be just fine. One thing I wanted to note here is, I may have mentioned this early in the series, but I can't remember how I did. Stock keeping for AE2 is very simple to do. In a simple form anyway. You can do subnetworks and stuff like that for stuff that's a bit more complicated, but for simple stuff you just want basically an interface block and a storage bus block. The storage bus can see whatever is in the interface, and in the interface you can drop items into this top item here, and the system, if it has a crafting card in this interface, will try and craft those for you. So if I take these 32 out, the system's going to trigger a job to go and craft some more. So that's the solar panel one. Let's just change CPU, or it should, if it can actually craft it. It may not be able to right now because I've just replaced some bits and pieces, but it will start crafting when it can and put them into this interface. And then you can see that interface because there's a storage bus actually attached. So just bear in mind that is an easy way to keep the stock. And you can just fill up these top slots with whatever you want. You do a full stack, but I tend to keep 32 in because it's going to try and craft 32 at once when you do this, which may mean that you have to have a 64k crafting storage or something like that, depending on how long the chain is to actually produce this thing in the first place. Similarly, I went and upgraded the ME drives, at least the first 6, to 64k drives, and you can see they're already filling because I've got a lot of stuff in the system. Eventually, what I want to do is actually just get rid of the storage drawer system entirely, and indeed even the other one, that one down there for the mob drops. The AE2 system will be able to do it. We may get to a data center build. I've done that before in the channel, but years ago, so it might be quite fresh for people to understand how to do that. The only problem with doing that is that this is KAPPA mode, and making things like ME drives and storage buses and other stuff is expensive as heck. So we are a little bit limited as far as making that kind of stuff fast. If you haven't seen a data center build, how it works is basically you can have so many channels on a subnetwork, but you can chain subnetworks. And the idea is that with storage buses, you can then see what's inside that network if it's got an interface. And then you then chain another storage bus and another storage bus, and another storage bus, and you end up with just row after row after row of ME drives in like a computer data center, but with very, very little channels used, because each subnetwork has up to 8 devices on it, so you can get away with a whole bunch. But we'll go into that when I actually get to it. It involves very careful construction, but otherwise it is a great long-term storage kind of solution, especially if you're on a multiplayer server with multiple people feeding into your storage system or whatever actually you want to do with friends. So yeah, that's it for that bit. Let's move on a little bit now. I'm going to then be able to, I think, deconstruct these. I've just moved the that's why the system didn't work. I've just moved the recipes over here into this interface, but I do then need to actually connect this to the rest of the system. But there is a cable fairly close by. I just need to craft some more smart cable, I think. Yeah, 14 is not going to be enough to do this. So I'm going to take down this, transfer the cable over, and then we can attach one interface instead of 6 interfaces, which saves 5 channels, of course. And on reattaching, you can see that that's already triggered. I can hear the machines in the background, but if I change CPU, it's going away and it's attempting to craft. Should be 32, crystalline capacitors. So having those in stock is just fine. I can actually request a full stack, but it should have separate crafting things for these by just adding another 32 here, and it should actually go away and do that. But let's just see, is that triggered a separate job? Because I have 3 CPUs now, but I think there's only one capable of handling 32 at once, so it's not going to actually just fill everything up. So yeah. Oh, and also what I wanted to mention is just dealing with storage like this. I have an IO port, which is how you actually sort of deal with this properly. You have to craft 2 ME drives to make one, but it's very well worth having one at this stage. When you want to craft all those 64Ks, you want to fill those with the stuff that's really important to fill. So what I tend to do is I don't bother partitioning the storage or anything. All I tend to do is take all the storage out, put one 64K in, and then start feeding in. If I just put the IO port down, just feeding in the other stuff into the left side over here, the other drives, and from the full towards the empty. So the stuff that's full of bytes, not necessarily full of types, the highest stuff first. And that'll dump as many stuff as it can, usually the high quantity stuff, into those ME storage cells. And then you can see that effect as you actually do that going forward. Once this is full of types, you put another one in, and you keep doing that until you actually get down to a low number of cells. You can see, for example, down here, a lot of these are actually empty. You do want to keep 4K cells because there's lots of items you want to add to the system where you've only got 1 of them or 10 of them or something like that, and you don't want to put those and use as type up for the 64K cells, at least not when you're starting out. Late game, you probably want to use 64K cells because you don't care about the resources anymore. But until that point, you just keep some 4Ks because they're useful for general storage, and that's everything pretty good. I've also got up to 3 4K ME fluid cells, but you can see that I've only got 11 out of 15 types there, so that's all of our fluid cells up here. So yeah, all pretty good. And here's the Empowerer complete. It's got a couple of solar panels. Shouldn't really be using too much of those sort of things. We can even deal with just one. Big energy input hatch. I've replaced the item input because one recipe will input 5 items, but if you don't try and do 2 or 3 recipes at once, it's easily going to start filling up your item input. So this is upgraded to ludicrous. And then at the top, I just have an output straight back into an ender chest. So straightforward. This all works quite well. And then I also got annoyed while waiting for that kind of stuff. The other stuff needed speeding up. So this episode is going to be not an optimization, but definitely a speed up episode. So I went and crafted 5 enhanced alloy smelters. And what are these going to be used? Well, they all have a crystalline capacitor. They have input output at the back, which means I'm going to use interfaces. And I only have 3 crafted so far. Where's the other ones? They're crafting basic control circuits, fine. And then we can just connect them to the system like this. It has pass-through through the actual interfaces, so we don't need to put a cable to each one. And then that should let me basically reproduce the patterns that I already have over underneath the main floor, or at least the initial floor. In here, I can move these out into the other ones. Now, there's certain ones of these that tend to be needed more than others. So for example, vibrant alloy I'm always needing. Crystalline alloy, anything making capacitors is always needed, so we probably want 1 of each in each of those. So I need 5 of these patterns, move them across, and it should process 5 at once, essentially. And also, it's an enhanced one, so hopefully it's going to be faster in terms of how fast it actually processes in here. It's already about 4 seconds per item for crystalline capacitors, but let's see if that's any faster with the new ones. Okay, the first one's already hooked up, so I've got just the original patterns. I've just moved them over here just to see how fast this is by comparison. So let's just take, I don't know, it's going to depend on the other one as well. Let's just take pulsating iron, shall we? So that should be simple enough. So pulsating iron. I want to just craft me 100, please, and go. And how fast are you? Yeah, that's pretty fast. That's actually much faster than it was. So, you know, imagine that times 5 and, well, yeah, times 5, and the system should be more than fast enough to cope with our demands for other stuff around all over the place. So that's good. I probably also will do the same thing with sag mills, but the sag mills don't need as many recipes, or we haven't needed them as yet. There's only 3 there, 4 there. Why have I got 3 in one and 4 in the other? Did I not need grains of pietality? Well, maybe I didn't. But I did the same thing already with those. It's the same recipes in both sag mills. So you can see we only really need probably 1 initial enhanced sag mill or something like that, and we can get away with that. So these channels are no longer needed here, and this one similarly. We could do 2 things. One thing is we could just not have 5 and just have maybe 3 and then another one on the end there to make 6, and then split the recipes. Or we could shunt them above. Let me just ask the system to make another interface. I want to see how well this actually, I'm going to need another 5 on I, so let's just tell it to craft 5, and it can do that. Good. So I'm just going to take this one for now. Do you nicely stack on top, or are you going to be half a block and weird about it? You're going to be half a block and weird about it. Fine. As long as it actually connects to this thing, I'm less concerned, but you could run essentially another set of interfaces across the top, and then maybe move this around or something like that to here, and then you could just have another cable, another section running to here, except that this is only going to have 8 channels, so 5 at the back, 5 on top, that's 10 channels, so we need a separate cable back to the dense cable. But other than that, you get the principle. You can expand this to be able to handle both sets of recipes, or just 2 sets. What I might actually do is 2 sets. I might do like 3, because this is processing quite quickly. 3 doing 1 and 3 doing the other sets, and we should be good to go there, I think. And that will just use up 6 channels, so I can just stay using a single cable. And of course we can expand that whenever we need to. Alright, excellent. So I've now able to remove both of those in power towers that were here, and now that means I can then move this old furnace setup, which was outside of the previous grid. Now it can be moved in along with everything else along, in one of these corners that we've just vacated. So that's all looking good as well. I don't think there's anything left for me to move into this new grid. It's working quite well. And let's just see how well that's actually working. So I've got a couple of sag mills from downstairs, and I've got all 6 now alloy smelters. So down here, everything's being cleaned up. This was feeding into the back of one of the sag mills, so I'll probably reproduce that independently, just so this automatically processes basically all netherrack. It gets doubled, or compressed, I should say, and then it gets crunched into crushed netherrack. So that needs to be moved elsewhere, which is perfectly fine. This just happens to be one thing that's on the end that produces these things, red alloy, etc., just by throwing them through the ultimate furnaces. So what I may well do is maybe move this down to, well, I could even just move this interface out to those ultimate furnaces, I suppose. But having this channel on the ender chest means I can move it elsewhere, so I can put it wherever I want. So it's going to go with all the rest, I think. All this stuff down here is going to clean up next episode, and we won't have to see it right in our underfloor area, because this area is going to be probably, this floor needs to move down. I can't move this yet up here because I've got bedrock, so I can't get rid of that. That's unfortunately not harvestable, so I can't bring this top floor down yet. So it's going to be a pyramid for now. But this bottom floor right here, it's going to be the same level, I think, as everything else. So it's going to be brought down to about here and then aligned, so everything will look fine down here. And there's probably just going to be just the controller. And then I'm going to be making more controllers, and then probably we'll get into P2P networks and stuff like that. One other thought I did have, by the way, if you wanted to do this, you could. I'm not saying you should, but you could. You can create a subnetwork here. Now, if you haven't used a subnetwork before, it's not too hard to actually do. So let me just see if there's a storage bus available. There isn't. Can it craft one? It can actually, so that's fine. I should have some interface blocks. So yeah, I've got some from the cleanup. So that should be fine. This is the storage bus. Let me just actually craft another one as well, if it will. And we'll leave that open in the background. So the idea of Subnetwork is a network can exist that has no controller on it, but it can only have 8 items in the network, 8 things that take channels. So you see there are 6 here, which leaves 2 spare, which is kind of ideal in some cases. Now, in this case, not quite so much because I've got so many items that these things can craft, and there are 2 batches of 3 here, so you probably have to separate this in terms of number of items. So you probably only be able to do, if you did the 5 setup, so 5 enhanced alloy smelters, you could have all of them being provided into this config up here on the subnetwork. So how does this work? So you have these just set up just like normal, but you don't connect it to your main network. What you do is just connect it to a pairing of an interface block and a storage bus. So let's just see if that storage bus is crafted. It looks like it has. All right. So what we have, let's say the main network is right here. Okay. And then we put a storage bus on it. Now, on this side of the storage bus, now I have some smart cable, I do. Yep, let's put some smart cable there. This is the inside, so this is this side of things. So this counts as 1. Then 5 of those will count as that's 6 total, leaving you another 2 spare if you wanted. But what does this do? So this storage bus sees the entire contents of our main network as an inventory. So it can pull anything it needs from this. Okay, and the other way around, if we just put this, I guess I want to put it down a little bit nicer than that. So let's just put down some more stuff there. So here, on the other way around, what we're going to do is just put you down like this. And you don't need to use the full interface blocks. You can use this version as well, the storage bus sort of flattened version. And you have it the other way around. And now what you have is the main network sees anything in this network as an inventory. So it's exactly the opposite. So they can both see each other. And this is one of the basis for the data center that we may end up building. But what you would then do is you need to be able to basically craft stuff and then provide it to your main network. So instead of just having an interface like this, you put a crafting card up in here. And then for each of these, you would basically tell it to craft a stack of them. You'll craft a stack before you did this, of course, and then just put them in this config up top in that interface. So internally, it would tell these to start crafting. These could see the rest of the network because of this other storage bus, which is pointing the other way. And then all that would happen is your main network would just see an inventory here that happens to have this many slots, slowly fill up with basically a full stack of each one of the things in this recipe here. So it would basically stock keep a full stack of each of your recipes in however many you want. But the important thing here, and the thing that's time saving, well, not time saving, cost saving, is that it only takes up 2 channels in your main network, 1 for the storage bus, 1 for the interface. And on your subnetwork, it takes up 2 channels. So you have room for 6 more. Or 5 in my particular example's case, but you could have 6. You could have all 6 of these be one set. The only problem is that, of course, you only have so many slots available for stuff, and you may want to craft stuff on demand that is much larger than 1 stack. So you would end up taking 1 stack out and waiting for it to repopulate. So I'm not going to do it for these, but there are cases where you do want to do that subnetwork thing, and that's going to be probably the data center build. So I'll show you how to do that, and it's composed of the same thing, but you just separate everything out with cables and everything quite nicely. I do want to just to demonstrate that this is kicking on quite fast now. So if I just go to crystalline, how many do I have in the system? I have 42, so I have crafted a bunch, and it's still crafting more. Let me just cancel that for a second, and hopefully it shouldn't kick on another job. So if I just take all of those out, so let's just take all of them. And what it should realize is, hey, I need to basically craft more crystalline capacitors, or it should do in a minute once everything's hooked up, hopefully. In fact, did I disable that while I was doing this? Let me just double check. Pop down. No, I didn't. So it will actually start kicking on at some point once it's realized I cancelled the job, and then it will restart. 1 second. it wasn't working because when I redid this whole setup here, I forgot to turn on the translocator. So, yeah, things aren't being smelted right now. And now they are. Blah, blah. It's going to feed everything out. Everything should just free up pretty quickly, although I may want to think about perhaps improving the speed of this. I think that's fine at the moment, but if there's anything faster than these, we can go up to that. But that should be fine, which should mean it should get enough coal fairly soon. And that coal should then let us kick on the crafting job. So just got to wait for that coal to come through the system. And it's coming through, but a little bit slow because everything is jammed. So I'll bring you back once it starts. And there we go, it's kicked on, and now everything is crafting, and you can see it's crafting really quite quickly through pulsating iron. You can see they're all on. So you can see this is just crunching through Electrum extremely quickly. Less so on some items, but still, you know, much faster than it was. And yeah, everything is being made in parallel, so this should be quite fast at restoring and creating basically that stack of 32 crystalline capacitors. If you need to get faster, just increase the number of alloy smelters, and of course you have to deal with the channels from the thing underneath. I need to actually just reconnect everything back together once I have enough dense cable. That is taking time, so maybe I should get through to P2P networks. If you do want to see me cover those, just let me know down below and I'll cover them in another episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Lots of tidying, lots of increase in capacity and speed, and then we're ready to move on with the pack, I think. So hopefully you'll see me next episode, and hopefully enjoy that. If so, give it a like down below, and let me know if any comments. Give other people tips in this particular mod pack, which is of course Project Ozone 3 KAPPA mode. And yeah, we'll see you next time. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and that's it for today.